With Coach Boynton as we continue to roll through Big 12 conference play, the Cowboys at Kansas State coming up this weekend and then back home again. So what do you feel like the team has learned through this first 2 weeks of conference play?
Well, I think a big part of it is with as many new guys as we have, including a couple starters and one who has played college basketball. Is the Big 12 is not just talked about as the best league. It's real when you live it. And every night you're in for a battle against not only really good athletes, but you're going into really good atmospheres. We experienced that last week in Lubbock and in Ames, and really not great weather environments at either place. So you got to you want to have your A game every night, but you got to at least have your B game to be in a game. And the first couple games we've been okay. We just have to step up our competitive level and consistency with how we're playing.
How hard is it for young players to adapt to the fact that people are absolutely going to try to make sure they can't play to their strengths? They're probably not used to that. They maybe never have experienced that before.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things to learn how to adapt to because, especially for a freshman per se, they've never really been scouted. Now, people know what they do, but it's very rare that a team can actually put a game plan in to stop them from being successful at it. And so for the first time, if you want to go to your left shoulder for a right-hand jump hook, a team by guys going to make you shoot that ball or turn over to the other way and try to attack them. If you're really good at pick and rolls, they're going to bring a second defender, as Javon Small's seeing through his first 4 games as a Big 12 player. If you're a really good shooter, they're going to try to run you off the line, as Jarius Hicklin and Bryce Thompson and Connor Dow are learning. So being able to adapt to still be effective, maybe not with the thing you do most often, but something else, maybe getting to the offensive rebounding, maybe getting some deflections and getting some easy baskets in transition and take the pressure off of your half-court execution, certainly things that we got to continue to work on.
How quickly can guys adapt their games to sort of combat what's being thrown at them?
It's probably very individualized in that regard. Some guys who've been very, very well coached can watch the film and understand the things that are being taken away and make the adjustments without a whole lot of help. But then there's other guys who need film study. They need more reps in practice. They need some one-on-one time on the chalkboard, kind of dissecting it. And that's really more often than not. The kids need to see it over and over and really live the experience as much as possible. So I'm encouraged coming out of the Kansas game that Connor Dow is starting to show some signs of adaptability. He played well. He didn't make shots. And so to be able to play well as a shooter in a game that you don't necessarily do the thing you do best is a sign to me that he's an example of a guy who's starting to figure it out.
He was someone I was going to bring up, as a matter of fact. He just seemed to be in the right places and seemed to make the right little adjustments in terms of spacing, passes, going after the offensive glass, things that don't usually pop up when you think of Connor Dow and you have this perception. Those are things that you may not think of. But, as you said, he's adapting. It was really interesting to watch how he fared against Kansas.
Yeah, and it hasn't come easy for him. There was always signs that there's something real substantive that we could build off with him, mainly his basketball IQ, his size and athleticism for his position, his understanding that he's not going to be a guy we play through often now, but he's going to find ways in terms of offensive rebounding, in terms of getting deflections to help us produce some easier offense. And then I'm confident because he puts all the work in, we'll see his reputation start to bear out as well as a really good shooter.
So next up, Kansas State, a team that had you really can't say struggled early. They had a lot of overtime games, perhaps against teams you would not expect them to go to overtime against, but yet they beat Providence, they beat LSU, they beat Villanova. Obviously, they beat Baylor in their most recent game. They had a double-digit lead at Tech. They could easily be undefeated in conference play. Are they a team that's starting to sort of figure out who they are because they've basically been totally recreated since last season? Is that what you see happening?
Yeah, you also see that a team that learns how to win close games early can really build true confidence in their ability to figure out whatever is going on in the game. I think they were down 5 with a minute to go the other day against Baylor. And you could just tell that when watching the film, there was an element of confidence that they felt like they were going to get the job done. And they end up winning in overtime. But yeah, winning all your close games helps create a little bit more toughness about your team. Certainly could be undefeated, a one-possession game at Tech on the road last weekend. And obviously playing in Manhattan is never easy, and so we'll have to be a little tougher than they are and obviously be able to produce a little bit more on the offensive end. But more importantly, our defense has to start stepping up a little bit and helping us.
So as far as Kansas State's concerned, the last month or so, is it safe to say that perhaps the biggest jump they've made is defensively? Their defensive numbers are really good.
Absolutely. Early on, they were trying to still figure out who they were going to be defensively. A very different team than they were last year in that regard. Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson really led them on offense and made it a little bit easier for their defense to have less pressure. They don't have that combination of dynamic players. Tyler Perry and Arthur Kaluma and Cam Carter is a different version of those guys. But defensively, they're really starting to make it hard for you to score, particularly in the half court. So that's why it's important that you try to get some easy baskets against those guys.
Cowboys in Kansas State on Saturday, and then back home next week for TCU. We'll see you next week.